Hello, everybody. My name is Martijn Lofvers. I'm Chief Trend Watcher of Supply Chain Media. You might also know me as Editor-in-Chief of the European quarterly magazine called Supply Chain Movements, with LinkedIn group, website, and you name it. So welcome again for this webinar Wednesday. We have a great, interesting hour talking about omnichannel warehouse management. And I'm happy that a lot of people are joining again on this webinar Wednesday. So again, you see me here on the left-hand side. That's me, Martijn Lofvers, CEO and Chief Trend Watcher of Supply Chain Media. And with me, I have two experts in warehousing. So first of all, I have Remy Malchirand from Consafe. Hi there.
Hello, Martin. So, I'm Remy Malchirand indeed, and I am the managing director for Consafe Logistics in Central Europe. I've been working in the supply chain industry for more than 20 years, mostly working with retail, but not only, with a lot of manufacturing and consumer product companies. Obviously, mostly in Europe, but also in North America and around the world. So very familiar with the topic that we're going to talk about today.
Okay, thank you. Henk-Jan from Donkelaar, could you introduce yourself briefly?
Yes, sure, Martijn. Thank you. Yes, my name is Henk-Jan van Donkelaar. I'm the Chief Sales Officer for Consafe Logistics since 5 years, and I've been in the supply chain software industry for over 25 years, of which connected to WMS for over 10 years. And also, as Remy said, specifically in high dynamic environments where the topic of today is of very interest too.
All right. Thank you for joining me in this webinar. And, to the audience, thank you for joining us. This webinar will be recorded and will be made available afterwards within 24 or 48 hours. And then also the audience can download the presentations we're going to discuss this afternoon. Everybody is on mute, but there's an opportunity to communicate among each other. So there are two functions. On one hand, you see the chat function. So if you are chatting to each other, everybody can see what you are chatting about. So that's something you can use. And next to that, you have a questions functionality with the question mark on the right-hand side. And then you can ask your questions. And even, people can vote for your questions. So please use the questions functionality. I can monitor that, and if this question is in line of the conversation we are having, I will make sure that I ask this question right away to make it more interactive. Of course, we have a Q&A at the end of this hour. And next to this Q&A, we have 30 minutes afterwards. You can go into the lounge and talk directly to Remy or Henk-Jan or myself in a kind of a Zoom environment. So we have 30 minutes afterwards. You can have your maybe very specific questions afterwards. All right, so we'll go through the presentation. On the left-hand side, you see the presentation. You can also have this presentation full screen. You see the small arrows at the upper right above the slide. You can even enlarge the presentation if you want to. But feel free to ask questions to me, Remy and Henk-Jan. Right, so let's start. Omnichannel warehouse management, that's the topic of today. And then next, we have done a survey last year after the first wave of COVID-19. We saw a lot of bottlenecks in visibility. And next, we asked companies in manufacturing and retail in Europe what their investments plans were for the next 12 months, so in 2020 and 21. And I highlighted three topics related to omnichannel warehouse management. First, end-to-end supply chain visibility. You see a lot of plans on that area. And in my opinion, the warehouse is part of the whole chain, I would say. So you see a lot of investments over there. And warehouse management systems you see also popping up. And what we find out in our survey is that the leading companies already have some warehouse management system available in their environment. But the rest of the companies who are on a level 1, 2, 3, I would say, on the Gartner maturity level, you see a lot of investments in both ERP and WMS. So that's also in the middle. And also new order management is also in high demand. And I think that's also related to omnichannel. So Henk-Jan, what do you think about these figures?
Yeah, I think it's what we see confirmed by our customers. And if you look at what is driving this is effectively the end customer and how to fulfill their demands and buying behavior. And for that, you need the supply chain visibility. So where are my customers' goods? You also have your multi or omni channels, so different channels where they buy stuff. So you need to order manage it, and then you need to fulfill it from the warehouse. So you need a WMS system. So it's not surprising that effectively these three are on the top of mind in investing in to kind of address the end customer and fulfill his or her needs.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we'll talk about it later. Probably, order management. I think could or should be a part of the whole warehouse management environment, because you have to orders and to process and fulfill it.
Yeah,
for sure, Martin. Maybe if I may, and with regard to warehouse management, I think it's a very mature market when order management is probably a bit newer. But I think, and we will talk about it today, I think warehouse management is also at a very interesting moment, and I think that there is a lot of innovation in the warehouse management space that we can talk about, and I think it's especially driven from this overall digitalization of the economy. So I think it's also an interesting moment in the WMS space.
Yeah, I think so. We will address it this afternoon. Maybe Henk-Jan, you can briefly talk about Concept Logistics for the ones who might not know your company. Could you say something about Concept?
yeah. Concept Logistics is a company that originates from Sweden, where our headquarters is still based. We exist more than 40 years, focusing on delivering value to our customers by delivering a warehouse management solution in conjunction with the logistics expertise that we built up over the years. And today we do that with close to 400 employees around offices in Europe. So we are a European focused company. So besides the Benelux, we are based in Denmark, Finland, Norway, Poland, Sweden, and the UK. Annual turnover of 55 million euros. We implement around 50 new sites on a yearly basis. And what's important in order for our future growth is also the fact that we have a backup and are owned by the GCE group already since 2003, enabling the growth of our company. And as you see in the next slide, that is basically what we talked about, is where are we based. So primarily we have a European focus, but what we do support is our customers that have global operations, which is visualized in this slide. But they should have, let's say, European headquarter or European decision making. So we typically do not target companies that reach out to us and say, yeah, we have a site in Australia and not. And that is today. We can not predict how the world is looking like 5 or 10 years from now. But today we have a European focus.
Can you say something about the particular setup of these European-based companies, both in manufacturing and retail environment? So, what are the typical, signs of how they behave?
If you look at the European market, what in my experience is different from the US market is that logistics is a bit different because countries are smaller than in the US. So the requirements from a WMS with that are also different in Europe than, for instance, in the US.
Mm-hmm.
And buying behavior as such is also different in my experience, whereas the European companies are really digging into details before decision making. So typically decision making can take a bit more time because they do it, in my experience, a bit more thorough than others. But that is kind of leveling out nowadays. But and it's a good thing, that the customer is getting more demanding as their end customer are as well, and that's where their focus is, as is our focus.
Okay, right. Okay, Remy, could you tell me about what's happening in the market? So, what are the developments in e-commerce, and how do they relate to warehouse management?
Well, there is a big trend, obviously, and in honesty, when we started to think about this topic for today, I was thinking, hey, this is kind of outdated to a certain degree. I meant that we keep hearing about the retail revolution for now, 10 years at least. Okay, so obviously the big e-commerce impact on the brick and mortar retail, and the new way of shopping, and what it means to supply chain and so on. And it doesn't affect the traditional retailers only, but we see now companies such as the big manufacturing companies or some of the big consumer product companies going into retail, going into e-commerce. And I think that this retail revolution now is really impacting us. And I mean, if you see the trend, it's only growing. And once again, I think that the big players, such as the L'Oreal of this world and the Schneider Electric of this world, also wants to go straight to their customer. Obviously, there is some better margin for them to go into this space. There is also probably the idea of acquiring a better knowledge of their end customers. So I think that the e-commerce and the overall digitalization of the economy is reshuffling the entire retail, and we've seen that over the past 10 years. And also, and if you go to the next slide, Martin, I think that the big trend in the e-economy. I mean, some talk about the big impact that it has on the stores, like in North America over the last 4 years. We've seen all the big retailers shutting down stores, and obviously, in 2020, this reached a record number of more than 12,000 stores being closed in America. But it is not just due to the pandemic. The pandemic is just accelerating the transformation. But I mean, if we look at 2017, 2018, 2019, the trend was there already. So really, the question is that retail has changed, and it has changed much before the COVID-19. And the one we were not omni-channel ready when the pandemic happened are probably suffering a lot today. Well, I don't think it's too late to embrace the transformation, but there is definitely a sense of urgency today. And the key component, I think, is that the customer today must be at the center of the strategy of any company. Because I mean, at the end of the day, it has never been easier to buy from competition. We always talk about being one click away from buying somewhere else, but the customer journey has changed, and has changed forever. I think we all know that when we go and buy something, most probably our process, our journey start online, and then we go and visit some item in the stores. Sometimes we buy, sometimes we use the store as a showroom, and we might finish the transaction online. So it creates a lot of disruption and a lot of opportunity for the customer to go from one brand to another. And it's very, very difficult to dictate the customer journey. It can start online, it can start physically. So for many retailer, for instance, a few years ago, they started to think about omni-channel with the buy online, pick up in store process, because basically they wanted to attract the customer in the store. They were already facing the challenges of e-commerce, and they wanted obviously to maximize the traffic in the store. But I don't think it's enough. and the numbers here are proving, because I mean the store are still closing, and I think that it's not enough just to believe that, hey, I'm going to use some component to generate more traffic in my store. So I think that omni-channel really means that the customer will decide now how and when he wants to interact with the brand. So, I don't think that customer can really dictate the customer journey anymore.
No.
And I think that for them, the main challenge is to offer all the different ways, all the possible ways of interaction with my brand, all the business scenarios. But obviously, the main challenge is how I'm going to make those different challenges, all those different business scenario, how I'm going to make them profitable for the company. And that's where I believe supply chain has a crucial role to play in the omni-channel transformation. It's basically how to make those different business scenario profitable for you as a company.
Yeah, it's interesting graph, the number of closed retail shops. But on the other hand, you see still successful brands like the Dutch brand called Action, rolling out in France and in Czech Republic, a lot of stores. For an omnichannel environment, there's still a role of the stores.
Oh, there is a big role for the store today. And I think the newer role of the store is more and more hybrid. I think that the stores could be definitely the traditional shopping store. It could be a showroom. It could be many things, and I think it could be also a delivery point. So that's why I'm thinking it should be hybrid to a certain degree. So you can obviously collect an item that you buy online and pick it up in the store. You can use the store to ship from there, and it's obviously a big competitive scenario against the giants like Amazon and Alibaba, who are opening warehouses around the planet to be able to serve their customer faster every day. I think that and we can talk about that. Retail has obviously a main asset, which is the store. So the store remains a key asset for retail and omni-channel retail. But I think that at the end of the day, once again, the customer is the key element. And I think that sometime in supply chain, we used to be a little bit further away from the customer. But I believe that it's what omnichannel is changing is that the new customer must be at the center of the way we think, even in supply chain. It means that when we work in the warehouse, we need to think about customer satisfaction first. Because I mean, from one hand, supply chain is a key component to meet the promise that we as a company we made to that customer, whether it's about the delivery date, the pickup points, the value-added services, many items like that. I think that at the end of the day, logistic is the direct link with my end customer and a critical component of our customer service and the customer experience.
What you saw with the COVID-19, on one hand, it has accelerated of the number of closing down retail stores, but on the other hand, it also accelerated the click and collect functionality. Nowadays, you see even local stores with QR codes in their, in their stores, in their windows, so people can even go to the closed stores, but with scanning the QR codes, they come up with the web shop, the local web shop. So even the click and collect has been accelerated. So that's also another side effect of COVID-19.
I think that all the omni-channel scenarios have been, crucial in this pandemic. I think that once again, if you were just a pure brick and mortar retailer, you're probably struggling right now. Mm-hmm. If you already had, some experience how to make those click and collect or ship from store scenario profitable for the company, you can probably take advantage of it. In every crisis, in fact, it's a key turning point. And you see, the one that were already a little bit lagging behind, accelerating their kind of, challenges, while the one who were already probably anticipating the big trend in our economy are probably growing even faster, basically taking advantage of the crisis. So crisis is always, also an opportunity for the one who were already embracing some of the fundamental, innovation in our space.
So okay, let's talk about omnichannel warehouse management in detail. And let's address it by the why, the what, and the how. So Remy, could you say something about why it's important at broader scale, and then zooming into the warehouse management function itself?
Well, I think it's super important, obviously, because there are different areas where omnichannel and this revolution has impacted the global supply chain. It created obviously some disruption in a business and the supply chain in general. And once again, disruption comes from the fact that omnichannel shift the focus from supply chain optimization, which is basically delivering the product to the store or the end customer at the lower cost possible, to supply chain being a key element of the customer satisfaction of the customer journey. I mean, if we look at the way we were thinking about supply chain, many years ago, we used to optimize it in silos. We had, inventory for wholesale, for retail, for e-commerce, and for each of these components, we were optimizing in silos as well. Like we were optimizing inbound transportation, we were optimizing warehousing, outbound transportation, and the last mile, with the clear objective to minimize the cost. So supply chain was a kind of the necessary evil to basically, bring the product to your store and to your end customer. Now, to make sure that we that we meet the promise and that we magnify, in a sense, the customer experience, supply chain needs to have a more holistic approach, if I may. We might have to compromise sometimes on transportation to meet customer demand. Okay, so retailer must break the silos. They should no longer think like retail versus online, warehousing versus transportation, to optimize the overall process. And that's basically down to who can create the best possible environment for the customer to shop with a brand. I got an example, like a few years ago, I worked for a large do-it-yourself business, and they were optimizing their warehousing, very traditionally, so make it very efficient in the way they were picking, packing, and shipping to the customer. Same thing for transportation, and that basically, the transportation was scheduled, like I was delivering to my store every 2 days, every 3 days, whatever, and the transportation was driving all the operation in the warehouse. So the omni-channels, came in, and now the challenge is obviously when I got my customer buying online, can he wait 5 days to receive the product? Probably not. Especially now that you've got Amazon selling, do-it-yourself product online and promising that to the same customer for today or tomorrow. So they have to think about, well, I need to probably sub-optimize my transportation so that I can ship to my customer every day. So they need to rethink about everything. And at the end of the day, they need to think about, hey, what is driving my revenue and how can supply chain contribute to my global revenue? And it's probably by thinking a little bit differently than by optimizing every chunk of my supply chain.
So I think that availability is more important than logistic cost at the moment.
It's availability,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the promise that we make to the customer, and is keeping that promise. And availability is all about also making sure that what is availability for sale, it's the real product wherever it is, and how I can take use of it to deliver to my customer.
So when you are looking at this slide, on the left side you see the Suez Canal, with the supplies on a global scale. In the middle you see the click and collect environment, and to the right you the shift to the local environment, to local needs and local customer demand. So this has helped to be taken into account to address this omnichannel world, isn't it?
It
Remy?
does. I think that all those components, I think, are impacting. We see, some significant changes in the buying behavior. Sounds, and we also see, and I think we can clearly elaborate on that. We see also some shifting customer demands in terms of sustainability and being, value conscious and price sensitive. I mean by that there was a race, I should say, with regards to speed to delivery, especially like when Amazon put a lot of pressure on retail and all the e-commerce retailer to deliver everything faster, like next day and then same day delivery and all of that. And I think that the new customer is also conscious of the impact that our consumption behavior can have on the planet. And I think to a certain degree that the online business has some limitation as well. I don't think that we can ship parcel around the globe without being conscious of the impact. And while the demand is shifting, I think that the customer is also concerned about sustainability. So retailer have a massive advantage here against the big giants like Amazon or Alibaba, and this big advantage is the stores, as we were talking a few minutes ago. I think that the store are closer from their end customer than anybody else. So they must take advantage of that to better serve their customer in a more sustainable fashion. So that's why I think that store are becoming more and more hybrid. Store are becoming, also some mini warehouses to a certain degree. And when I see some of the challenges that the hypermarket industry has, for instance, they are thinking about, hey, should I transform some of my stores into warehouses to a certain degree? So I think that we are going backward, and I think it's a kind of a new frontier for the WMS, where the WMS is also getting into the store.
So, Henk-Jan, could you give some examples from your customer base, how they are looking at your market and what's developing over there?
Yeah, of course. And I think what we touched upon before is that their behavior, the customer behavior, is changing, and companies are seeing that more and more clearly as they see, okay, we need to facilitate their buying behavior and accommodate that. And basically, it comes down to, okay, a customer wants to buy from anywhere, wants to have it delivered from anywhere, and will also want to return it anywhere, especially in a omni-channel environment. And companies based in the industry, they are doing that in different ways. And here you see a couple of customers who have been doing this and being driven by their end customer demands. So take Dekamarkt, for instance, which is in this case an e-com supermarket, but they also have physical stores. And one of the reasons they started to implement the WMS because they wanted to provide their end customers with a seamless experience shopping at Dekamarkt. If it was in the store, if it was online, yes or no. And they transformed into a kind of logistic organization in the sense that they saw logistics as a competitive advantage and are investing in that. And based partly on the implementation of the WMS, they have been realizing that. What you see at Shubi is a fashion retailer, but supports multiple channels. They have retail stores, they have e-commerce, but they also have wholesale. And with one WMS, they want to provide their end customers with a seamless experience also, no matter in what channel they are, supported by one single WMS, which supports the, let's say, the e-com processes in a different way than the wholesale processes. but they need to have that flexibility. And as you said before correctly yourself, Martijn, availability and reliability is key towards your end customer. And these companies kind of realize that the end customer is now sitting behind the wheel of the supply chain, and they are defining how it should look like, not only today, but also a couple of years from now. And the last one is PostNL, which is a 3PL. They have a fulfillment center in the Netherlands where they have more than 80 end customers, typically web shops who have their stock at their site. And they have more than 80 customers, but those 80 customers all have different needs for their end customers, meaning some wants to have a written card. Okay, this package is packed by Henk-Jan. I wish you a lot of fun with it. Another one wants to have a pink packaging paper around it, but they all need to accommodate that through one single WMS, but also in a very smooth and very quick way. Because yeah, if they get a new customer, that new customer wants to be live in that warehouse 5 days later, and they can do that with a WMS. Before they could not, potentially losing that customer. And again, it ties into what we talked about before. Have a focus on your end customer and trying to create a seamless experience for the end customer.
So well, 10 years ago, WMS was regarded like an inside-out process where you have waves and optimizing the waves. But now it's more outside in. From the customer, you see different kind of flows, supply chain channels, all to be managed in one single warehouse management system. So how should that be done? How do you approach this?
Yeah, and again, from this is driven by the end customers, facilitating through the WMS, and this is being done in many different ways. But if you look at what is key and helping the customers in that is also the new technologies, like we have artificial intelligence, meaning that you can be even more quick in your pick routes in the warehouse, meaning that you can fulfill a complete order for your end customer. Because the last thing you would like to have is that he's ordering 10 products and you deliver 7 today and 3 tomorrow. You want to deliver all of that in one go and in one delivery, because that is what the demand is from that customer. Any end customer is, for instance, also getting more and more into sustainability. So they also look when buying, is this a sustainable company that I'm buying from? If you look at my personal experience, I still, when I order a small pen, I get a box 50 by 50, and then I say, oh wow, this is a big package, but it's only containing a pen, and that is nowadays no longer acceptable. So the WMS should also take care of, okay, if I order a pen, I need a package that accommodates that pen, and not that you can store like 1000 pens in that box that I receive. That is not done and not accepted anymore by the end customer. One other thing that we really see in omnichannel is mechanization, automation. So a lot of companies are implementing mechanized solutions in order to be quicker and to handle different types of packages. If you look at one of our customers, CB in the Netherlands, which is also a 3PL company, they really changed their whole business from, let's say, pallet picking type of operation, and now they just implemented a new warehouse where they have bin storage. So they're very small packages. So the whole order pattern is changing rapidly also, and you need to accommodate that as well. So what they are seeing is that smaller quantities, more SKUs, so the whole order pattern is changing, and you need to accommodate it as well and lots of companies are investing in automated solutions in order to help them with that. So you see the integration between the WMS, but the WMS with automation, but also with transportation solutions to optimize the transport is becoming more and more important.
I know you have invested a lot in visualization of the warehouse, so you are also developing a digital twin on a warehouse level to come up with scenarios and also to create a visual overview of what's possible. All these things you see here on the slide, like artificial intelligence and automated machines, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that for an omnichannel environment, there's a need for visualization and a digital twin on that level.
Absolutely, yeah, and it helps, as you said yourself, with scenario planning, and with that your adaptability goes up, and you will be more flexible to serve your customers. So yeah, I totally agree to that.
Yeah. So, and I think it's paramount that organizations have to not only visualize it, but also explain how it would look like or should look like to accommodate this omnichannel world. So, Remy, it seems to me, you have the traditional warehouse management system, but for this omnichannel world, you have to move over to go beyond, isn't it?
Oh yes, definitely. And I think that that's probably one of the the key value that we at Consafe we can bring to the market. I mean, if you look at the traditional WMS, it traditionally the backbone of your logistic operation. It's all about delivering to your customer if you are a wholesaler, to your store if you're a retailer, or to your customer if you are to your end customer if you are just a web store.
Mm-hmm.
You've got all the traditional functionality in the WMS. And also on top of that, nowadays, you need more and more to facilitate some, as we talked about, what is available for sale, the calculation or when we can promise this to be delivered to the end customer. So I think that there is a lot of innovation in the WMS space, but I think the critical one, if we look back at traditional warehousing, is that supply chain managers, especially in the retail industry, they were obviously trying, as we said earlier, to optimize the big chunk of orders that they got when they were replenishing their store. So you got the big store orders coming into the warehouse, and you want to make sure that you're going to serve this as most cost efficient way as possible. And grouping all those orders together, you had a big algorithm behind that that usually we call the wave. And it was the idea was to make sure that the way you distribute the work to your to the floor was the most efficient way. And obviously, the bigger the orders were, and the bigger the group of orders were, the most efficient way you could calculate this work and the efficiency of that work. And that process of a wave was super efficient when you were trying to optimize the traditional store orders. But I think that but it's the on the contrary, it's a kind of a very rigid process, because you have to schedule your wave. You were running wave like every 2 hours, every 4 hours, or whatever. And this rigid, I mean, the fact that it is rigid, and especially when your customer wants to have those orders delivered at a very clear certain at a certain amount of time, then obviously it becomes a challenge, especially when you have to meet the promise that those orders must be delivered at a certain time. So this is the clear distinction between what we call a wave-based WMS versus a waveless WMS or WMS and WCS. And our WMS at Consafe Logistics is it's a native waveless WMS WCS software. It's basically built to manage the new ways of operating into a warehouse. So basically, you no longer try to optimize to make sure that your cost will be the lowest. You need to take that into account. But the main driver within your warehouse becomes the promise that you make to your customer. So it's basically based on order priorities, customer satisfaction in a sense, that you're going to make your decision and that you're going to release the order down to the flow. So Astro, our WMS solution, will pick up the orders in a continuous flow based on priority criteria, and we will optimize it from there. And we will optimize again based on the priority. And there is no other way around today. I think that the WMS system tied together with WCS cannot solve the challenges of a high volume operation with automation in an omni-channel scenario. I think that WMS and WCS must work together and collaborate very, very closely to keep the resources that we've got, and resources could be people or could be automation. So we need to make sure that they collaborate very closely together, the WMS and the WCS, to make the best possible utilization of those resources and reduce the order cycle time. I think that there is no more a relationship as the WMS is the leader and the WCS execute the order sent by a WMS. I think that they collaborate together. And the WCS can, for example, pull orders from WMS based on capacity, for example. So I've got spare capacity and I can attract more order from the WMS. And because you want to make sure that you can saturate the expensive equipment that you bought recently, you want to really make sure that your solution combine WMS and WCS as this type of process built inside. And I think that the whole ways of optimizing the warehouse with the wave, I think it has still some interesting opportunities, because I think that the complexity is how do I make sure that I've got like 20% of my order that are coming from my customer and I can meet those customer demands, and at the same time I might have still like 80% of my orders coming from the store, and where the wave process is super efficient. And that's all that's what our WMS is clearly providing to our customer. And I think that we believe at ConSafe, we have a very distinctive value proposition that some call innovation, but I think it's in our DNA, and it's exactly how our solution was built many years ago. So the waveless solution tied together with WCS, and I think it's a clear competitive advantage today for any retailer going omni-channel. And I think that there is another frontier that we talked about a bit earlier when you talk about WMS. It's how do we get into the store?
Before we get there, I had a question from the audience, Remy. Henk-Jan mentioned that the WMS looks at the size of the product to determine the package using AI. The question is it based on volume or dimensions? Or does it all start recommending buying different boxes size based on historic data? Remy, Henk-Jan, could you comment on that? So using the packaging, like the example, the pen, how do you work with that? Is that in the WMS or in the WCS?
No, that's being handled in the WMS. And starting point is the dimensions of the products, but also looking at nesting, for instance, because if you have two crates that can fit into each other, two crates is not 2 times 1 crate, but 1 crate times 1.2, for instance. So it all counts with those kind of rules, but it starts with all the dimensions. And based on that, it calculates continuously based on the total order. The WMS will suggest what the best box is to pick in. to have as less air in that box as possible.
But I can also imagine, you can add this single pen to the rest of the orders, but maybe you can send this pen in an envelope, and that's basically how a customer could or should order this pen combined with other stuff.
Yeah, so typically the customers have a fixed set of packages to start with, and that is the basis for the whole box. We call that box calculation, and the box can be an envelope, a crate, or a wooden box, and based on that, we calculate a crate. And sometimes you also have complexity, like we serve customers in the fruit and vegetables business. There you need also to secure that a let's say big heavy fruit is not laying on top of strawberries, because then you have strawberry jam at the end of the day. So that is also taking into account what box and how to pick that specific box. So it's a complex solution, but providing a lot of value to the customer, also to be more sustainable, but also to have less cost for packaging. If you can do it more efficiently, you also need less packaging material.
Yeah, that's an important point. So Remy was saying, the WMS is moving into the retail stores, and you're right. But I was wondering, Henk-Jan, could you give some examples from your customer base, what the developments and the changes are, and how they impact your omni-channel world and your warehousing?
Yeah, of course. I think we touched upon a couple of them already. What we see happening at CB is specifically shifting customer demand. As I explained before, they moved from, let's say, pallet picking now to box picking with smaller size, more orders, also a broader range of articles. For that, they have now implemented the new warehouse with the shuttle system. Dekamarkt wants to facilitate the changing buying behavior, and with that have a seamless experience for their end customers. So they are transitioning their organization and see logistics as a competitive advantage in realizing that by implementing a WMS. The one that we did not talk about yet is Net on Net, which is a e-com company delivering electronics, and they have also different channels to market, and their, let's say, driver is we want to facilitate we want the WMS to facilitate all the different customer demands in those different channels. So they support story planners they support the e-com orders, but they at the same time also do restocking of the warehouse stores they have, but also they do fulfillment of orders which are supplied by third parties, and those are different streams but supplied from one single warehouse. So the WMS should support those three different streams, as the end customer has different requirements from those processes. It should be, we said they need to support both e-com retail stores as well as wholesale, and they need full flexibility in order to serve their end customer, but buy anywhere, deliver anywhere, return anywhere. PostNL we talked about, that's more about they want to really be able to configure themselves the WMS for a potential new customer and not be dependent on us in this case. So the WMS should also provide them with a very flexible tooling to being able to adjust and adapt based on end customer demands. And Helly Hansen, they also have different processes both supported by the WMS. So they have a e-commerce flow, which is more like batch oriented, but their wholesaler channel, they have more box picking and piece picking. So there are different types of processes also supported by different types of automation, for instance. But from a WMS perspective, these different processes are both supported through one single instance of a WMS. So that tells you that the flexibility in order to create this seamless end customer experience, which we talked about before, is very key in making your omni-channel strategy a successful strategy.
I can imagine, in the omnichannel world, we talk about commercial channels, stores, web shops, and so forth and so on. But these omni-channels, they have to be translated into logistical flows or supply chains, and they all come together in a warehouse environment or in parallel directly from your wholesaler or your suppliers. So basically, all these channels, all this flow will come together in a warehouse environment, both in an order level and on the physical level where you need the WCS, the control systems. So that's where you combine it. So this is the new way of looking at a warehouse and a warehouse management system.
Yeah, and I think that is why one of your first slides was about, okay, where do companies invest? And then I said, okay, it's not for nothing that they actually are investing in all that is connected to what you were just describing, making the warehouse kind of the center of excellence in order to create this customer seamless experience. And for that, the WMS is one key factor. And more companies are seeing that, and for that matter, are investing in WMS solutions, in order management solutions, in supply chain visibility solutions that you saw in your first slide with where people invest.
Yeah. So basically, when you have inventory, when you have stock, and you need fulfillment, especially e-fulfillment, the warehouse is crucial, and it's evolving in a different direction.
Yeah, exactly.
So wrapping up, so we have some time for Q&A later on in a few minutes. So how do you summarize all this, Henk-Jan or Remy?
Yeah, if I think that today was a very interesting topic. What we touched upon is, okay, why is it important? So why is it interesting? And then we talked about, okay, how is the supply chain in general changing? What is disrupting there? So what are new business models and how you can accommodate that, driven by changes in the end customer behavior, for instance. The demand is becoming more and more important and is changing a lot. So that is shifting. So it's important for companies to get on the train and to change with that, because if you wait too long, you can also be too late. And luckily enough, as we touched upon before, more and more companies are realizing that and are starting initiatives or already implementing stuff to accommodate that process. So what they want to do is say, okay, you Mr. or Mrs. Customer, you want to buy from anywhere, deliver anywhere, but also return anywhere, and we want to make that available for you in a seamless experience, and we want to deliver that seamless experience to you. So it's no longer one channel, no, it's omni-channel. And for the customer, it should not matter. He wants to have one experience delivered to him. And lastly, we talked about how and touched upon the WMS and what requires that from a WMS and what do we see happening in the market, like sustainability, so shipping less air, optimal packaging, more and more automation making decisions, supply chain visibility, which we touched upon, integrated artificial intelligence technology in making the WMS more and more smart based on order patterns. What do customers buy with what other products, and should we store them in a more efficient way so that, because we learn that they are picked together then, so then it's not good that those two products that are being purchased at the same time are lying in a warehouse 200 meters apart. Now you want to have them close to you. So artificial intelligence enables the WMS solutions to become more and more intelligent and help organizations being more efficient in the warehouse. We also talked about the WCS, so warehouse control system, which is important when you have mechanization/automation in your warehouse, because you want one single solution that is handling all the communication and kind of coordinating all the flows in the warehouse. So a WMS with a WCS enables you to do so. And also looking at sustainability, you want to optimize transportation. And IT solutions in general are becoming more and more uniform. They are able to connect to each other more seamless, which is also good for customers implementing these kind of solutions, which enables them to swiftly connect different worlds to each other, like supply chain visibility, order management, WMS, ERP, etc.
Right. Okay, we have a few minutes left for this webinar, and beyond 5 o'clock CET, we have still 30 minutes after this when we can talk in the lounge directly to Henk-Jan and Remy. So if you have more questions, feel free to ask them directly. So now it's time for Q&A. First from my side, Henk-Jan, Remy, you have been around in this warehouse management software world quite some years. So what do you see as the major trend in your environment, addressing the omnichannel warehousing?
I think that some of the key trends obviously are related to SaaS. We offer our solution as a SaaS solution as well. But I think that it's even more important in a fast changing landscape as it is right now in the warehouse, to have your solution in a very flexible way, meaning that you can benefit from it. You can increase, improve, benefit from innovation in a much faster way when you have it on a SaaS solution. So I think it's scaling automatically. It's also super important. It's much more flexible than an on-premise solution. So I think with a fast changing environment as we are facing right now, I think that SaaS become a very interesting opportunity for our customers. I think that the other major trend that we see is what we talked about, is about the waveless type of operation, because I think it's touch one of the main component in terms of what the WMS is becoming. As I said, I think that WMS used to be the way to optimize your operation in the warehouse. Today, I think that WMS becomes one of the key elements in order to generate value. So basically, when a few years ago, WMS was about cost optimization, I think that today it's all about revenue generation. And I think that this waveless, scenarios, and making sure that you meet the expectation of your customer, that you meet the promise that you made to your customer and serve it at the right time, still in the most efficient way. I think it becomes, the critical innovation in and the major trend in warehouse optimization.
A final question, I think, before we wrapping up and move to the lounge. Question from the audience: how does the waveless WMS tackle the challenge of combining order lines from different picking zones? I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not sure to get into the detail of but I think that picking zone. I think it's the WMS, whether it's waveless or whether it's wave based. I think it's it starts from the customer needs. It starts from the customer demands. So basically, if we've got if we have to serve one customer at a certain deadline, and if you've got that
order and you need to serve it in the next hour in order to meet the demand, that become the top priority versus aggregating all the orders and waiting for the next wave to be run in 4 hours. So that's the whole idea of that. And once again, coupled with the WCS, it allows to potentially maximize the utilization that you make of your automation. So I'm not sure that I answer to your question, but I don't think that there is any difference here between the wave and the wave left scenario.
All right. I see some more questions coming in, but I would suggest, please join us in the lounge after this. We have 30 minutes where we can talk directly about this stuff. There's some more questions about this waveless and wave picking in different zones. So with this, we have some content available online. So here you see some content we have created with our Dutch Supply Chain magazine together with Concept Logistics. We have a checklist. We have a trend interview and even a roadmap for omni-channel warehousing and to implement it. And next, we have also some international content delivered, at a website from Concept Logistics. Some interesting white papers and some customer cases. So that's available online, and with the PDF from the website, you can click on it, and it will be directly linked to this content. And not next week, but the week after, we have another webinar coming up about the future of work and supply chain. And for now, I would like to thank the audience for participating. So thank you, and maybe you will join in the lounge after this. And especially, I want to thank you, Henk-Jan and Remy, for sharing your expertise. So Henk-Jan, Remy, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Marty.
Welcome.
Okay, all right, and they will be available right after this in the lounge. So I want to wrap up for now, and maybe I will see you in another webinar or speak to you, and or we will meet in the lounge right after this. So thank you, and I see you hopefully in the lounge or at another webinar. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.